Okay, hello and welcome to day 3 of the Launch with Pride Challenge. Goal of this challenge is to help queer entrepreneurs grow their impact and income using challenge marketing. I am Justin Meziton. I am your host, and I am glad to have you here with us today. So first, let's do a little recap of yesterday, which was very packed with a lot of information. So yesterday talked about marketing, and the whole idea is to be able to acquire, keep, and grow customers. So what do you need to do to communicate that, your benefits to people so that they want to become a customer and stay a customer and bring in more people? Talked about the marketing funnel. So going from awareness to purchase, each of these steps, your marketing has to accomplish each of these steps in order to get someone who's never heard of you to become an actual customer. Some of these steps are very together. They're not clearly defined, saying this is when this one ends and this one begins, but whatever your marketing frameworks you decide to use, they have to sort of bring people through this process. We talked about a number of marketing strategies and tactics. These are what we talked about. There are many benefits and pros and cons to each of them. And the one thing I do want to remember or say is they all work. It's just some are more effective than others. Some require more lead time than others. But yeah, so whatever strategy you use, you're still going to use some of these multiple items. It's just thinking, how do we put these together to deliver our business needs to have the outcomes that we want? So we talked about the value ladder as well. And this is a picture of the value ladder and the ideas of how some of those marketing strategies work at different places on the value ladder to help people get more into your business and want to support you and join you more. We also talked about how a challenge can help you at each of those levels of that value ladder. So it can be one kind of strategy that encompasses the benefits from some of these other ones, from some of the other marketing strategies and frameworks. So our homework was to share your value ladder or to share what of these marketing strategies we've been using. And from that, we can sort of have a better idea of who else is here with us, what's been working for us, what might not be working. And I want to share all of that. So thank you to those who've watched the replay and those who've done the homework, both of today's homework and previous days. These videos will be available for a little bit. So if you haven't watched one, you can definitely jump in and catch up. But so today's challenge, today's topic is let's make a challenge. This is part of the goal of the whole week is for you as entrepreneurs and business owners to show up here and to like see what it would be like to make a challenge for yourself. Some of you might use this information to run your own challenge. Some of you might just enjoy the aspect of going through this process, because part of what I was saying yesterday about challenges is they take from the challenge framework, takes from some of the other frameworks within marketing. Takes the idea of teaching on a webinar, takes the idea of offering free content like a lead magnet, takes the idea of having a VIP that accomplishes those tripwires, takes the ideas of sort of referrals by using the community-based container to bring people together. It takes ideas of content marketing where each day, for those of you who signed up, have gotten an email about what's going on. So we're taking all these different parts of the strategies that work and the challenge methodology, it brings them all together to sort of get the benefits from the most and to find ways to just streamline them. So today, our goal is to come up with a challenge for business, for your business, and to let you know the main things that it takes to create one. So first, we'll just look at some ideas of challenges that people have run, and we'll just keep going from there. So we're going to look at a couple challenges. So the first challenge, this is the Greatness Challenge that was done by Lewis Howes. 5 days to money abundance, eliminate self-sabotage, live an abundant life, and attract more in your life and your business. So most people know Lewis Howes from his podcasts and YouTube series, which is, I think it's the Greatness School or Greatness Academy. And he brings on big name stars and influencers. So naming it the Greatness Challenge sort of provides that little connection point. And this was a challenge that he ran. Markel Russell does a lot of business coaching. So he's running the Wealthy Black Coach 5-day business sprint, which is actually happening next week. And similar, it's I'm working, you can see who he's going for. It's going for people who are people of color, people who are Black, and who are coaches. So it's sort of clear to see who this person's going for, what it's about, why I should join. We've got Armin Shafi and his viral offer challenge. So how to unlock your viral offer and become #1 in your industry. So it's very specific about what the outcome will be. So it's for people who want to create a challenge and grow to the top of their industry. Let's see, we've got John Assaraf. He wrote the book, The Secret, and he's also a business coach and mindset coach. So he's running a challenge called the Business Breakthrough Challenge. And this one is actually a paid challenge. So it's only $47. And part of it, again, it's giving people a clear outcome and telling them when it's going to be and how to get connected to it. There is the 5-day Movement Maker Challenge run by Pedro Adao. This is one of my mentors, and he's the actual one who got me into entrepreneurship officially, and being a part of his program actually helped me grow a lot, both in my mindset, ideas, and just how things can actually be done. This was a really interesting challenge, and we can sort of see what's there. Also, this challenge, it's the first one that also has guests. So there are a couple other famous named people. If you are paying attention to the entrepreneurship industry, you might have heard of some of those people as well. So these are all ideas and examples of challenges that are out there. We have this one, this Right Now challenge, and it's a challenge to write your first book for women of faith, led by Sue. I actually joined this challenge one time, and it was actually really interesting to see how she simplified the ideas of writing a book and creating an outline and even coming up with topics. And yeah, that's another example of just how people can use challenges to grow, support, and help other people serve an audience. And let's see, this one I also took last year, sort of. It was a 7-day virtual gay relationships challenge. Create healthy relationships with yourself and others. And the idea of this one, as you can tell from the picture, that it's going for people who identify as gay men, and people who like relationships. So when I took part in that challenge, it was pretty interesting just to hear different ideas about some of the challenges gay men face in defining relationships, both with romantic relationships and friend relationships in the community, but also relationships with ourselves. So it was a really interesting way to use the challenge framework to actually end up selling personal coaching so that you can help people sort of define the relationships they want and create the relationships they deserve. So all of those are different examples of challenges. And I mentioned this earlier that I was a student of Pedro Adao, and basically he created the new form of how challenges are run throughout the online marketing industry world. I think a few years ago, most people did not know who this person was, and now he's worked with people like Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson and a lot of others, just big names who saw this framework and its value and benefit being done throughout the pandemic, especially when everything was closed and everything was just online. I joined his program called Crush It You, and I shared this slide the other day, but this is me at his house for a workshop where everybody was part of that, got to get a in-person workshop to go deeper in depth of the framework, to learn more about how to implement it, and just that higher level of immersion in the training, both with him and their coaches. So when it comes to challenges, again, we're always going to come back to this idea of marketing and these three focuses, these three pillars. So what service do you provide or product do you sell? Who are you going to serve, and how do you provide that to the customer? Having those three together show you who what your business is and who you are as a business. So when it comes to coming up with a challenge, having a clear idea of these questions will help make it easier for you to design a challenge, which is just a marketing campaign, to help serve your audience. So if you remember the Greatness Challenge, Lewis Howes runs the Greatness Academy or Greatness School, and that's the name of his podcast. So by coming up with a challenge called the Greatness Challenge, it connects to his main business. And then thinking about the idea, the content of the challenge, it's about money abundance. And then under there, in the tagline, there's some of the things that stop people from getting money abundance, right? So self-sabotage, attracting more abundant life, coming up with all themes that are connected. So with all that being said, what does it take to make a challenge? We have to answer some of these questions. So first question, who do you want to serve? This challenge right now that I am doing, it is for queer entrepreneurs and the queer community. When I use certain examples, I'm pulling out inclusive examples of people and situations that reflect our rainbow community. When I'm talking about my own story, I'm focusing on some of the differences that I've seen in our queer community versus some of the more open, straight communities that don't really understand this. So when it comes to this challenge, knowing who I serve determines how I talk about my content, what examples I use, what I call it, what I'm going to use on my graphics as I promote the challenge in different places. So that's one of the biggest decisions you have to make, who you will serve, because at the way life goes, there's a saying that says, if you serve everyone, you serve no one. So what that means to say is, if I tried to have a challenge and I was serving I don't want to say Christian people, Buddhists, if I were to serve different people of different faiths, and that was a part of my challenge, and it was bringing all these people together, although that's possible, it could be hard because there's two different vocabularies that resonate with certain people. If I were to be talking for one group of people, it might turn off the other group of people. So yeah, so when I think about who you will serve, it's thinking about how can I create a container where everyone can feel seen and included, and I can then edit my content. I can present my content in a way that gets the most, in a way that resonates the most. Sometimes what you can do is just to not start with the surface level descriptors. For example, a lot of business coaches or people will say, are you serving men or women? And when it comes to our queer community, we don't always see a binary. We see that there's a spectrum, and making decisions based on men or women isn't the same. For the idea of the one challenge with the gay relationships challenge, that was a specific direction to take. And what that did was it said, here's how you have more affinity with the people around you, and here's how I can speak specifically to problems that gay men face. So I can talk about what it's like to go to gay bars, what it's like to use Grindr, what it's like to connect and feel like you have to go to the gym. Like, these are the specific issues that this community faces. And that's one way to help your challenge be more effective. Because if you're hyper focused on one community, you can truly see the problem they have, and you can know what solution can actually help them. Which goes into the next bullet when it comes to making a challenge. What one problem will you help them solve? So most people are busy. We have a lot of things going on in our lives. We don't have the time to show up for hours every day. Maybe we may not have the time to even show up live when it's going on. So it's how can I find a problem that this one group has that I can help them solve in the time of the challenge. There are some problems that are very easy to solve. So something more tangible where it's how to, like if you're in health and you want to come up with a workout plan, that might be a little bit easier to solve because you can just look at what kind of equipment do people have in their house, what do they like to do, and we can say, try this out and it'll work or it won't work. It might be something else, which is like, if in that same area of terms of health, you can be talking about nutritions and some of these like allergies that aren't as distinct as like a allergy that'll, send me to the hospital, but it might be something that's working against my body and I don't know about. So that one might be a much longer problem. So you might have, on day one, it's try this one food and here are typical symptoms. And then if people were to experience that, they can learn, oh, this helped. And now I can do something different. Whereas this might be a really bad example. And this is why I'm not a doctor. But there are some other problems. So I'm just going to change that example completely and move to something more like relationships. What would help me in my relationship with my partner? That might be a much deeper problem that we may not be able to solve. But maybe we can say is maybe the problem can be, instead of how to solve all of my relationship, it can be how to have one hard conversation. So the whole goal of the challenge would be to talk about what that problem is, why it's an issue for me, why I'm scared to talk about it, what I think that means about us and our relationship and this other person. And then at the end of it, you can say, here's how you can understand yourself. So you can understand this issue. And then by the end of this week, you will have that hard conversation with your romantic other. So it's thinking about how can we find a problem that a certain group of people have. How can that I can help them with. Like I said earlier, I'm not a doctor, so certain health problems I could never help people with. So I'm not going to try to solve that problem. And there are certain problems that might need a higher level of commitment. Same example with the doctor, surgery. I'm not going to be able to do that. But if someone asks me about working out or something that's a little bit lower, I can say, here's what you can do. So the main thing is to get small and focused on the problems that you can help them solve. And then thinking about, okay, how might I help them solve this problem over the course of a challenge? Which goes into the next step. What are those steps to solve that problem? Most problems are not just one size fits all or one step fits all. If it was, people probably wouldn't have that problem anymore. So it's thinking about, when you think about the challenge, it's all right, I'm going to help them solve this problem. And now what steps does it take? So in terms of the idea of having difficult conversations with a partner, you can say, okay, step one is to, identify what the problem is, identify what conversation you're avoiding. And then step two might be understanding what makes that hard to have that conversation. And that could be both in terms of what beliefs I have in myself, or what if the outcomes or results of having this conversation. What if I say this and they say that and we disagree? Does that mean we separate? Does that mean we have to do something else? There are other steps involved in that are holding you back from doing this outcome. And then also, okay, now that I know the problem I have and I know why I believe it, how do I actually share that out loud with someone else? So when it comes to that, there's like, okay, 3 steps to having this conversation. And then like how to schedule the conversation and like what's the ambiance or atmosphere you want to have this conversation in so that both people can show up fully. So that's what that bullet is about. It's like coming up with the steps that it takes to solve it so that you can see, okay, this can be a 3-day challenge or this can be a 10-day challenge, which is sort of the next bullet in terms of how long will it take to help them. So part of the idea of a challenge is having daily action steps, a daily assignment. This way, each day they are taking one more step closer to solving that problem. In theory, you could, do a really long day and have people take all the steps at one time. But depending on the problem, people might need that time to sort of digest the information and to do one small step instead of taking one large step or feeling like they have to take a step and then another step and another step. These are some of the key points that you need to like think about when it comes to running a challenge and helping people solve that problem. Yeah, so I think all of that is really important. And that's like just that base layer. That's the part of the iceberg we can see. But when it comes to this first bullet of knowing who you're going to serve, that's where it gets important, because there are certain people, we all have problems. But some of our problems are more top of mind than others. Some of our problems are more expensive than others. And some of our problems are causing more other problems in our lives than certain other problems. So by knowing who you want to serve and truly getting to understand them, you can see what problems are more important. And then when you align that up with your business and what problems you solve, you can say, this is the type of problem that's really going to resonate with them. This is the type of problem that's going to help. This is the type of problem that they will react to and they'll see, ooh, this challenge is going to help me solve this one problem I have. I want to show up there. I'm going to be there because I have this problem and I just need help to get it over with, to resolve it. So those are some of the main decisions when it comes to making a challenge. Another one is coming up with a challenge name. As you saw earlier, there are many different challenge names that are out there. For the most part, some of them were specific, like Business Bootcamp Challenge or Write Your Book in 5 Days Challenge. Some of them were different, like Lewis Howes. It was like the Greatness Challenge, and then it had a tagline, and then it had also a description, just so that people know, okay, this is what it's about, this is what that word means, and this is who it's for, and this is what it's about. So once you answer the questions before of what problem you're helping them with, who you're serving, how long it takes, then you can sort of take those pieces of information and create a challenge name. So challenge names will typically include the length of time, so people know, is this 3 days or is this like 21-day challenge? When it comes to the length of a time for a challenge, it's about that question we asked earlier about how long does it take to get the outcome. So if we know the outcome takes at least 3 days, we need to have a challenge that's at least 3 days, maybe 5 days. And that way people can start on day 1. And by day 3 or 4, they're able to see the outcome of the result and they're still in your challenge. And then you get to like celebrate with them that they've already solved this. So length of time is important. The second thing, which is probably the most important thing for a challenge, is the big idea, or the hook. So the idea is, lots of people run challenges, lots of people have businesses, lots of people are constantly bombarding people on Facebook ads and in social media. So when it comes to a challenge, it's what's a big idea that makes my challenge stand out? What problem is so big and the way that I approach it is so novel or interesting that it's going to attract people to what I'm doing. This is probably the hardest part of a challenge, because there are a lot of people who have businesses who just don't know how to talk about what they do. There are a lot of people who may get focused on the details, but sometimes it's like, how do I how do I sell this? What makes this new? We think of like Uber. It took an industry, the taxi cab industry, that's been around for a long time, that had a lot of issues, a lot of reasons, and they changed it. And their big idea was, um, using your phone. So the taxi, getting a cab on your schedule with your convenience in mind, instead of you having to go outside, flag one down, or call one and wait for 45 minutes. It's, we'll pick you up. We're your best friend to help take you home. And that way they took this big idea and went with it, makes it so much stronger. For some of the challenges that I've seen, there are a lot of people who say you will get your first client in 5 days. So it's like a challenge for coaches, and it's 5 days to get your first client. During this challenge, you're going to do it. Yeah. So thinking about that big idea, and then it's usually tied to an outcome or result, but only because that helps. Telling someone, here's the value of what you're going to do. Every challenge, the worst case scenario, there is a time investment. So telling people, here's why you want to invest your time with me. Here's why I want you to click this link. Here's what's in it for you. So thinking about the promised outcome or result for somebody to attend your challenge, that is a nice way to like come up with a name, because then maybe it's, the 6-pack challenge, where you can like get a six-pack in a week, which is not real, but that's the way you can do it. Or another type of outcome that someone really wants. And that's why, again, it always comes back to knowing who you want to serve, understanding them enough to know the problems they have, and understanding your business enough to know the problems you're most fit to solve. And sometimes you just get really great names for a challenge. So you may add things like a tagline or description, so that people can be more it can be clearer and more specific as to what that really means. Sort of like with the Lewis House Challenge, it's like the Greatness Challenge. I'm like, that's a good name because it resonates with his brand and his business, but then added the taglines. So it's about abundance. And then here's how we're going to get there. So by doing things like that, it allows you to better market your challenge, it allows your challenge to stand out. And if someone hears it and they can see the idea of your challenge in 5-10 seconds, it makes it much more likely for them to join and then get in contact with your business and become a customer. So again, these are some examples that some people have these are some examples of challenges that some people have run. And if you look at these, I don't have all the names of who ran these challenges, but for some of them, they don't really stand out. Like, I don't really know who this is for. Like the 5-day God Idea Challenge, that seems like it's for people of faith. Or the Own Your Future Challenge, it seems interesting. And the problem with some of those are that the person leading it already has a brand. So like with Lewis House, even though he has a brand about the Greatness School, he could have run a challenge called the Greatness Challenge. And I'm sure he would always have people who just show up because they know him and they like him and they've been listening to him for years. But as those of us who are still in our earlier stages, who don't have that kind of brand recognition, we may need something that's more specific. That's like, write your next book challenge, right? It's specific. Someone knows what that means, and they're able to say, I want to learn more. I think, so Pedro Adao, my mentor, ran the God Idea Challenge, but he also has, one of his businesses is a Christian kingdom entrepreneurship business group. So running a God Idea Challenge, when you run faith-based when you have a faith-based business, it sort of connects to your brand and who you're talking to. The 5-day Own Your Future Challenge, that was done by Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. So like, there are many of us who know Tony Robbins, who know of him anyway. And anything he puts his name on, it's like, oh, I have an idea of what that could be about. And I have an idea to how I can trust that this would be an interesting experience. So when it comes to the challenges, thinking about, okay, how can we be clear about the outcome? How can we be clear about who it's for? And, also with these, it's also clear about what it includes, right? It's 7 days, 3 days, 14 days. And that way, when people see it, they're like, oh, that makes sense. I can do it. So that is basically it for today. I think when it comes to a challenge, these are the 4 main questions to answer. Who do you want to serve? What problem do they have that you can help them solve? And then for you, what are the steps to solve that problem, and how long will it take? I've been in a challenge that was a 5-day challenge, but it actually took over 10 days. So the leader would give an assignment, and it wouldn't just be answer these questions really fast, but it'd be answer these questions and do this thing and give it a little bit of time and see what happens. And that way, even though it's a 5-day challenge, it still takes about a week and a half. And then it's like, oh, I made progress. I have a question. Here's what didn't work. Here's what did work. So you can organize a challenge in such a way so that you can help people achieve that promised result. And if you know that it takes a day or 2 to do something, then you can figure that part out as well. So like if you are cooking and if you're teaching people how to cook a dish and you need like yeast to rise or something like that, you can add extra space into your challenge so that, okay, day 1, I'm going to tell them what to get. They may not get the ingredients overnight. It might take 2 days for them to get the ingredients. Okay, they have to prepare it in certain ways. That might take extra hours. So let me give them more time to make that done. So by thinking about that problem, you can set them up for success. Because yeah, at the end of the day, it's sort of implied, but I probably should say it out loud, is the goal is what you're doing. You can help someone solve a problem. You are giving them good, valid information that is helpful. You are actually choosing to serve them. So if you're choosing to serve them, you want to help them succeed. You want to help them win. So the hope is you can solve the problem and you know how to solve that problem, and you know how long it takes, and you can help them. And that's how you design a challenge around that. Otherwise, what's the purpose? What's the point? And we never want our potential customers or audience to think there's no point to what's going on. And the only thing worse than that is you being able to help someone with a problem, but not them not being able to understand that. If someone has a problem and I can help them and they don't think I can because I said the wrong words, or I was focused on something else, or I wasn't clear in my marketing, that seems less fun. That seems less helpful. So these are the main decisions it takes to run a challenge. Here are some things that it takes to create a challenge name. Let them time, thinking of that big idea, the promised outcome or result. And then, so here's the assignments for today. 1, what are the top 5 problems your business solves? Because again, knowing the problems you solve, you can choose which one is the most, which one is the biggest. When I say this problem specifically, which one do all my customers say, yep, that's the one I need help with? So by seeing all 5 out, you might not, you might focus on that first problem, but there might be a second one that's a little bit easier to stand out when it comes to running a challenge. So think of the top 5 problems, and also what you can do is think about what are the top 5, and then how much of a problem is it? So most people would agree. Think of it like Price is Right. No, not Price is Right. What's the other one? Family Feud. Family Feud. We interview people and the top 5 answers are on the board. So if you have all 5, you might want to choose the top 1 or 2 problems and thinking, how can I address that? 2, you want to think about how easy it is to solve that problem. The idea of like 6-pack abs is a great outcome that people might want, but you probably can't do that in a week. So it's like, okay, what's a step in that process that is actually solvable in a few days? Next, what are 5 to 7 descriptors of the person you help? So when it comes to who you serve, there are some people who are just like, I serve women between 40 and 50 who are entrepreneurs. That's helpful in some ways, but also what is your, like, how does your business actually help them? And how do I market to them? So when you think of like coming up with 5 to 7 descriptors of the person you help, think about it both in terms of some physical demographics, but also some psychographics. So when I say psychographics, I mean, what do they want? What do they desire? What are they thinking about? So like a psychographic might be like, they are faith-based, or they like organic things, or they like, luxury type of people. So people who are making a certain amount of money or in between this amount, people who really like nice things, people who like to be outside in nature, people who like to be inclusive, people who voted for this type of person. So by having those descriptors, that'll help you develop a bigger idea. Because there are some people who would really resonate with the term becoming because of Michelle Obama. And there are some people who would resonate with the term, I don't know a good Republican term at the moment, but there are some people who might resonate with people who might resonate in the world of faith. And like, if you were to use a Bible verse or something like that, they'd be like, oh, that makes sense. The John 3:16 challenge or something like that, right? Like that means something to this group of people. So coming up with descriptors for the type of person you help will help you come up with a bigger idea and a name for your challenge as well. And then the last thing for homework is to share a challenge name in the group. So what you can do is just put that in there and get feedback. And part of that feedback, I think, is just, here's what I learned from the someone might say, I don't know what that means. Or you can just put your challenge name and people can guess what you're actually trying to sell or what you're doing or what people would learn or get out of that. So I think that is it for today and day 3. What I would like to see in a group is, answering these assignment questions and putting any questions you have about this in there as well. Thank you for showing up and thank you for watching the replay. I hope to see you in the group or to send me an email if you're off of Facebook, and we can chat later. All right. Have a good day, everyone.